Welcome to Patty's Aquatics. What I want to do today is talk about water changes and if they're necessary. But more specifically, are water changes necessary in a dirty tank? Do you do water changes? Do you have a routine? Are they even necessary with dirty tanks? That's a lot of the questions I've been getting in some of the comments in my videos the last couple months. So I kind of thought this is the perfect opportunity to kind of give my opinion on the subject, but also kind of explain what I actually do down here in my fish room when it pertains to water changes. Well, it's probably been about a year since this was the hot topic on YouTube. Lots of YouTubers are making videos giving their opinion on the subject. The problem with it is, though, there is no one cookie cutter way to really say if you need to do water changes, when or how to do them. There are so many different styles of hobbyists out there with different styles of tanks and ways they keep them. There is really no one way to say you need to do it this way or you need to do it that way. But more on that in a little bit. So what's the first thing you learn when you get into this hobby? At least I can speak for myself because it was back in like 1995 when there was really no internet or YouTube at that time. The only education I got about any of this was the print that was on the side of the box from the aquarium I bought, which is I needed to do water changes. Now things have changed and progressed since then, but the number one way to combat so many things within our aquariums are water changes. So water changes are one of our biggest weapons in order to be able to combat diseases and different water parameter issues within our aquarium. But are they necessary for every hobbyist in every style of tank? That's what I want to kind of take a deep dive into right now. So what are one of the main things you look at to determine whether you need to do water changes within your aquarium? Typically, it's the nitrogen process, correct? If you have ammonia or nitrates within your aquarium, that usually justifies doing a water change, but it's typically nitrates and their levels of what we're looking at and observing to see whether we need to do water changes or not. Well, let's say you're someone that doesn't keep live plants. Maybe you got a bare bottom tank and you're a breeder and you have heavy stock loads. Obviously, monitoring those nitrate levels and coming up with a routine to keep your water clean is a must and a necessity. And water changes are 100% necessary in those situations. But what if you're someone that has a dirty tank or a heavily planted tank where those nitrates really don't rise? Then is it warranted then? Through my experiences keeping dirty tanks, and even before when I just had very heavily planted tanks and deeper substrates, and like I noted numerous times throughout videos on my channel here, my nitrate levels don't ever go above 10 parts per million. So if my nitrate levels never get high enough to warrant water changes, then are they necessary? Well, that's a question, like I said, I get asked a lot. And I would say there are a lot of people who have commented on my videos to say they don't do water changes with these dirty tanks. And if you're judging it solely off your nitrate levels, then the answer would be, yeah, no, you don't need to. But are there other things to think about besides nitrate levels? One big thing that I believe gets overlooked in this topic is, what about replenishing those trace minerals within your aquarium from those water sources? Like calcium and magnesium, to name a couple. The style of tank and how heavily planted they are, they eat and feed so much on everything, not only from the roots, but the water column. And I believe that it's very beneficial to be able to replenish that once in a while. But the real question is, how often do you need to do that? So for me, with this style of tank, I really believe there should be no schedule as far as you need to do a water change like every week or every 2 weeks or every couple months. I think you really should justify it more on observing your tanks and your conditions to tell whether or not you should. So for myself, do I do water changes? Yes, I do. But I don't really have a set schedule. They typically happen maybe once every 2 to 3 to 4 months. I've went 6 months already without doing them. Like I said before, I feel like it's very important for my tanks to be able to get some of those trace minerals replenished, and it's just very good for the plants. Now, do I need to do them because of my nitrate levels? Absolutely not. So that brings us back to where I said in the beginning with all these YouTubers about a year ago saying whether or not you need to do water changes or not. But We're not in these cookie cutter boxes. Every tank and every hobbyist is different. Now, I could have the dirty tank and I do my water changes every 3-4 months, where another person can have an identical tank like this and they don't do them at all. It's really up to you and what your belief systems are and how your tanks are really working for you. And that's really what's more important more than anything. So to answer that question, are water changes necessary for a dirty tank? Well, my honest opinion would be no, they're not necessary. Although I like to do them occasionally for that benefit of being able to replace those trace elements within your aquarium. I think it's very beneficial for your plants. Now, if you're someone that doesn't do water changes at all within your dirty tanks, that's completely fine too. Like I said earlier, that's the biggest thing. Everyone has their own vision and way that they want to do things within their aquarium. And if they're succeeding and thriving in it, that's all that matters. Like I said earlier, I could have someone that has exact identical tank to mine that wants to do no water changes at all, or I do some maybe like every 3 to 4 months. As long as we're succeeding in what we're doing, that's what's most important. Now, obviously, if you're someone that says, I'll never do water changes under any circumstances, well, that's a little different, because there are certain areas where you may need to do water changes. Like, say you got a sick fish or something, you need to medicate and you have to do water changes. So there are circumstances where you may need to do water changes, but from the whole perspective of just whether it be nitrates or whatever the situation is, I truly believe that it's not necessary, but it can be beneficial. Now, if you're someone that doesn't keep dirty tanks or heavily planted tanks, do I believe water changes are necessary for you? I would say absolutely. They're a very important tool to help you maintain your aquarium and keep your fish healthy. But for those of us that have dirty tanks, my opinion and suggestion is just to watch your tanks, observe your tanks, let them tell you if something is wrong, and most importantly, do what you feel is right to help maintain your aquariums. Whether you're doing no water changes forever or you do them every once in a while, as long as you're not just doing water changes to do water changes that are pointless and for no reason, that's all that matters. Everyone has their own path and way they want to do things, and that's what's the most important thing about this hobby, is to be able to do what you feel is right. You can take opinions from other people and use them for your own, but do what you feel is right for your aquarium. That's what's most important. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that notification bell, because you don't want to miss any of my upcoming projects. And thank you very much for watching. And I hope to see you next time here at Patty's Aquatics.